Hi everyone. Good afternoon.
Good
Uh,
afternoon, sir.
yeah, Hi Chanti. Have you joined?
Sorry, sir, you saying something?
Hey, hi Ram. I have just joined. Just give me a 2 minutes.
Sure, Chanti. Right. I think there are a lot of students still joining. Right. So please take your time. Good afternoon, everyone. Before Chanti comes back, right. So welcome everyone on this workshop on Python. Right. So we have hosted this workshop with very clear idea in mind that so
Uh,
Python is kind of
Sir, I
becoming
have a
a
question.
yes, Myra.
Sir, I was asking that when it will be ending this session.
So this is a 1.5 hour session and it's a four
Okay.
class session, right? This is a four
Basically,
class.
four series you will teach in one session, right?
No. It's a four class session. Means
Okay.
1.5 hour today, tomorrow, and then we'll have two classes next weekend, right? We can't expect to cover the whole Python in 1.5 hours, right? So
Yes.
yeah, that's what actually I was going to brief you about. Right. So this is a basic Python workshop where our understanding is that you're not coming from a deep programming background. So it's a four class workshop. In first class, we will be dealing mostly with the basic structure of programming language, which is around Python, and the program flows along with some data types. In second class, then we will go into your functions. The third class we will deal with object oriented programming, and in fourth class we'll try to cover whatever is left in first three classes, and then the fine handling and multi-threading. So that's the construct of this program. And along with this program, after you have done your class, we will share one Google Sheet so that all people who have attended this class, we will also share a worksheet with you guys, right? Because programming is something that you can't work until unless you have put some efforts into it, in solving the problems, right? So we'll share you the problem after this today's class, so that by the time you come to tomorrow class, you have done some of them. And after tomorrow's class, also we'll share you, a worksheet. So use this four class more like a springboard for you, right? In this four classes, we will give you a very basic idea about how to write a program in Python, basic program. After this course, you can choose your own expertise in different areas in Python. Let's say if you want to go into data engineering, you can take a lot of libraries which are required there. If you want to go into analytics, probably you can study about pandas and numpy. In networking also you can use it. You can use it in cybersecurity, right? So this program is there for you to start exploring your the different competencies that you want to develop in Python. So use this classes very seriously, guys. So first class, maybe you may find it to be a little bit more basic in case if you already have some exposure to Python. But trust me, by the class second, by class third, class fourth, even if you have some idea about programming, you will gain a lot of it, right? I last time I did this class from Chanti, and I think that's the first time when I got such a great clarity about the object oriented programming, right? So be a little patient if in case in first class you think things are very basic. By second class, third class, you will still found it very useful, right? And so guys, before we move further, probably I can give you some idea about the Antalk also. So Antalk is an edtech platform, and in case if you go and log into our platform, you'll see that we have hosted a lot of interviews from different professionals who talk about different aspects of professional life. Either it is data engineering, data science, or cybersecurity, right? Other than that, we also have our own boot camps on cybersecurity, on data engineering, on digital marketing. We are also launching few more boot camps about around DevOps, right? So they are more advanced boot camps. They are more advanced course, and probably they will be the second step in case if you want to continue choose any of these things as your career, right? So do check out our website. You'll get all the ideas there. Probably I will also take some time later on to give you some brief about the data engineering course, because that is what will be directly useful to it. And our course is usually taught by people who are existing data engineers, and it is a weekend program, um, right? And a lot of our students are also part of today's class. So yeah. without any further ado, I'll see Chanti, have you joined? Okay, I think he still haven't joined. So no, he has joined, but I think he's somewhere. Right. So yeah. So idea is that to get maximum out of this program, you have to put some efforts from your side also. Whatever questions we are giving to you, right. Even if you're not able to complete all of them, still complete most of it, so that you build up your skills, right. And trust me, this is not a skill which you will be able to develop just by taking 4 classes. You have to go and practice. So after this class also, you can register on different, either you can start doing the competitive programming, or the like hacker ranks, hacker Earth, all those places you can see, test yourself how good you are in programming. Okay, great. I think Chanti has joined, so I will leave it to him. Hi Chanti.
Hey, hi Ram. Yeah, sorry for delay.
Great. Okay, Chanti, please go ahead. Have fun, guys.
Okay. Okay. Hey guys, good afternoon. Hope everyone can see my screen. Can anyone confirm, guys?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, fine. Guys, before starting the session, let me introduce myself. This is Chanti. I have around, guys, 7 years of experience in IT as a Python senior software developer. So I'm working as in a product-based company. And more than 5 years of experience I have, guys, in the training for freshers and as well as laterals also. And today agenda is, guys, the basic stuff of Python I'll try to inject you. And maybe people get confused that like who can attend this session. So for the first session is what, like who can attend this session. I'll give you this clarity first of all. Who can attend this session? See, this session can be see, you may suggest this session or this kind of session, the one who are like conducting by the Antwerp. You can suggest, at least from next onwards, you can suggest to your like your friends, your like younger like brothers or sisters or any elders that who are working. And the session is clearly, guys, for the who are pursuing the degrees with the respective of the stream, and the one who are working, right, and who are like trying for the jobs, right. The all people can attend the session. And one more thing, guys, I want to give you what are prerequisites for this course. What are prerequisites for this course? First, I'll give you. See, guys, the prerequisites for this course here is at least the basic programming knowledge you need to have it. Not like 100%, at least 10% of programming knowledge. If you have it, that's better to you to attend this session. So that is a very basic prerequisite for this course. That is only one thing, that at least that 10% knowledge you need to edit. In 10%, guys, I'll list out them. Maybe you can double check in your system in terms of software or in terms of some topics also. The first thing is, some topics from the Python. You need to have a basic thing as what do you call it as is a variable, and what is a identifier, right, and what is a literal, and then coming to what is a constant, and then what is keywords, what is operators, and guys, these are the topics that you need to have it, the basic prerequisite topics. Let's get into what software stuff, the software stuff, guys, that you need to have in your system here is, the first of all, the latest version of the Python, maybe the 3.9.6, I think, that you have to install. And then one of the IDE that should be there. It can be anything, but guys, I am doing the today program everything on the Python itself. So guys, these are the prerequisite topics. Okay, and as well as, guys, this is the software stuff that has to be there in your local machine. And this is about guys, like who can attend this session, and like guys, what are the prerequisites for this session. Now, today I'll try to cover on some advanced topics in Python, and not complete advanced. From basic level, some advanced content will be there. Because see, the who are like working in data scientist, like a DevOps developer, or a like a Hadoop developer, or Python developer. Python developer means they maybe work on guys the frameworks like Flask, Django. Huh? For that guys, there are some key topics there in the Python that will be used regularly in the code pattern. That are something, data types. Okay, and before that we have a topic on control statements. Control statements. So almost the 80% of logic is written by the control statements only. And I'll show you the way you use the control statements, and I'll show you guys what are the data types that you used in the Python. Then after that, the second session, like we are planning some topics like the functions and in depth of the functions, right? And that anyhow the curriculum I'll share you in the next session. So guys, these are the prerequisites, and guys, these are the today topics this is the today topics that I'm going to be discussing. And again repeating you guys, these are very simple topics. Maybe if no one have any awareness of this one, we will share you one. I'll share you one slide. In the slide already the description is there. By looking the slide, damn sure you will get that idea, no doubt in that all. But still, if by seeing these slides, if you're not able to catch up the things, then so don't feel shy to ask in my next session itself. So tomorrow's beginning of the session itself, you can shoot out me like, sir, I'm not good at the literal. So can you just elaborate? Yeah, I'm ready to elaborate, but you have to have a look on this topic through the slide. That's it, guys. Like now I'm about to start the session with control statements. Okay. So is anything you want to discuss? You can discuss, guys, now. Okay, then I think this is clear to you all. Yeah. Okay. So let me move to the content, guys, like control statements now. So let me start the topic. And yeah, these are the slides, guys, that I'm going to be sharing you. So please have a look later, not now. So this is something like installation process there, how to use the software. These are the keywords, and what is keyword, variables and constant types. Anyhow, this flow again, I'll give you data types flow, and these are basic input and output function like printf and input function, print and input function. And this is about 5 types of total 6 types of operator. Yeah, maybe you can get this content. Let me start this content, guys, like control stage. Can anyone confirm, guys? You can able to hear me, right? Are you following? Hello.
Yes, Shanti, we can hear you. So guys, in case if you have any questions around the things that has we are missing out, you can see we can explain in 1 or 2 lines to you. Okay. Yeah, Shanti, we can hear you.
Okay, then fine.
Yes, Vrishiketu, do you have any question? Okay, Vrishiketu, you have raised your hand.
I have muted everyone actually.
Okay. Yes, please, you can write your questions on the chat box. We will pick it up.
You can unmute now, Vrishiketu.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay, please put your questions
hello.
in the chat box. Yeah, Vrishiketu.
Yes, sir. Sir, can you please share this PDF after the session?
We will share the recording, Vrishiketu. Please ask questions which are related to this class right now. Otherwise, you can put it on your chat box. We'll answer.
Okay, okay, sure, sir. Sure.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, Shanti, please go ahead.
Okay, then. So guys, everybody can see my PyCharm. So now I'm about to preparing one sample Python file. Maybe everyone can see.
Yeah, we can see. Chandri.
Making this file image. Yeah, fine. So I'm making this file name as something, the test1.py. Yeah, actually I was trying to giving the overview first of decision making statements and as well as the loop statements, then jump statements. Then after that, I'll go with the coding part. See, if I write some piece of code in PyCharm now, let's take an example. Suppose in print, I'm writing 1. In a print function, I'm passing as an argument as 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, and then 6. So observe, I have totally 6 print functions. I have print statements I have written, and we know that if I run this code, then definitely what the Python interpreter will do is, that is in prerequisites. What is Python interpreter? Like how it will work. Okay, so how Python interpreter will work here is, Python interpreter does not have any entry point, a specific entry point. From starting of the line, code will be executed and up to the end like this. So it will start reading the code from the first line and it will end the execution in the last line itself. So that's what you can see the output. You can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a program basic output. Now the thing is, you need to understand the control of the Python code execution. The control of the Python code execution is not in user control. It is in Python interpreter control. Suppose you want to execute the statements on your specific conditions only, then you have to go to a content call, what we call it as control statements. This word itself referring that why it is called as control statement is by default a Python code, the control will be taken by the interpreter. That is what from first line to last line code get executed. But you want to take this control, then we can go with this like control statement. Around we have a 3 categorization. One is a decision making, and the next one is loop, and the next one is what jump statement. We have a subcategory. Okay, first let me go with guys the decision making statements. First let me go with the decision making statements. So the one who have already knowledge in other programming language, it's not tough to you to understand. Even you are learning first time also, easily you can understand it. You can see guys, I have totally 6 statements. Now I want to use this control statements. The first one is decision making statements. Let me use it. Let me take a variable something, a is equal to something 100. A value is 100. Now, I am taking one condition here. If a greater than, if I write 50, observe the thing, a greater than 50 I have written. It means the condition, you can see the false. A equal to 100, a greater than 50, sorry, the a greater than 50 means the condition gets true. Now what I am doing under the if condition. Under the if condition, I was trying to preparing the 3 statements, and then else, now I was trying to printing the rest of the statements. Now if you see this one, first here we are condition checking. If the condition is true, then this 1, 2, 3 statements executed. Otherwise, that is else part, this 4, 5, 6 statements gets executed. So this is a very basic condition I have written, a equal to 100 and a greater than 50. Now a greater than 50 means the condition gets true, so this will be executed. So let's run it guys and check this output. Yeah, you can see now the program control in our hand, not in the Python interpreter hand, right? We just control that statement, like we executed this statement under this condition is true, otherwise this statement gets executed. Now if you write a less than 50, then this condition gets false, this condition gets false, then control comes to else part and the rest of the statement gets executed. So this is about the control state, the decision making statement. The first category, decision making statements. So what the decision making statements will do is, based on the conditions, the statement gets executed once. Based on the state condition status, based on the condition status, every condition have the only 2 status, either true or false, either true or false. So based on the condition status, the statement gets executed only once. The last statement you have to understand, only once the statement gets executed. Suppose if there is a situation like you want to execute the code repeatedly. Suppose if there is a situation you want to execute the statement not only once and multiple times you want to execute it, right? Then we can go with the loop statements. So let me use, instead of this while, let me use a while now. Let me use a while now. Now you know how written here while a less than 50. So the guys here, the condition fails first time. And if the condition fails, the control does not enter into the any one of the statement, and no, none of the statement gets executed. But if I write a greater than 50, yes, now the condition gets passed. Now this time this loop statement like while and for the next you can see while and for, this while and for, what they will do is they will develop to execute the statement repeatedly. Yeah, now if you run the code, this 1 2 3 4 5 6 continuously executed, you can take it. Yeah, on the console screen, guys, they are continuously checking, and we haven't decided any exit point. That's the reason what the code continuously executed. But I'll give you a proper code also, so don't worry. So guys, this is about something, what you call it as loop. Even the for loop also we can use in a simple way. We can use in a simple way, and inside the loop, the statement gets executed. If you use a loop statement inside the loop, in a particular point you want to stop the execution. Inside the loop is nothing but this continuous statement execution. So while executing the statement, you want to stop somewhere else, then either you can use the break and then you can go with the continue. That's the reason they called it jump statements. Anyhow, while I'm explaining the loop programming, then definitely I'll add the real-time use cases, like when to use a break and when to use the continue also. So guys, this is the introduction part of control statements. Again, repeating you, decision-making statements will execute the statement based on the condition status, and that too only once the statement gets executed. But if you go with the loop statements, condition gets failed. And inside the loop, if any particular point of view you want to stop its execution, then guys, either you can go with the break and continue. Yeah, now let me start the coding with if else and elif. If else with the elif. So yeah, so guys, this is basic of if, and just don't concentrate on your like left side 3D part. So just directly focus on your eyes at right side of the flowchart. So here we are testing one expression. That is what we are testing one condition. So if the condition gets true, okay, the body of the if will get executed. Observe, sir, what if the condition gets false? Yes, if the condition gets false, control comes out of the if statement completely, and if any statements get executed, that statement will execute it. Anyhow, let me show you a very basic program, guys, how to use the if, how to use the if. Just give me a moment. I was trying to increase in the size of the font. Give me 1 minute. Yeah, maybe it's better to you compared to the previous one. So I'm taking one variable. The variable 1 is equal to, let's give a value something 10. Maybe I can try more. Oh, I think everything is changing, but not my content. Just wait a moment. Yeah. Yep. Now I think it's look good to you. So let me guys, the three cases, let me take you now. I mean, let me take the one positive case. So I have a variable which hold the value 10. Now I want to check this number is what you call it as a positive or not, just positive or not. So then directly, the case you can write it as what? If V1 is greater than 0, if V1 is greater than 0, then, we can print a message called something, the V1 is a positive number. V1 is a positive number. V1 is a positive number. Like that, we can calculate it. This is what a very basic, simple example for the if. See, here V1 is equal to 10. Now we are checking if it is greater than 0 or not. We know if the number is greater than 0, then it is a positive. If the number is like a below 0, then it is a negative. So I'm checking that case only. Now after, if guys, the indentation you have to carefully observe. Indentation. See, once if you place the colon, if you click enter, cursor blinks somewhere else, no? There only you have to start writing. That is what the strict indentation it will follow Python. Now guys, after completion of the statement, now I'm clicking on the enter. It means now we can see where the cursor is blinking in the beginning of the line, not in somewhere else, the beginning of the line. It indicating that now you are outside the if. Now outside the if, I'm writing something, a statement called print. Yeah, I have written something, a statement called end. Now if you see guys, the condition is true, then you will get that output 10 is positive. You can check it. Yeah, you can see 10 is positive. And I told you this is the statement treated as like outside the if, completely outside the if. And observe if this is the same statement if you are writing here. Now in this case also you'll get the both same output. You'll get the same output. But let me do one change here now. Now I'm taking this number as -10. Now guys, the condition gets false. Now can anyone guess what will be the output? Yes, on the chart it can tell. Yes, that you will get that output as end, because the condition is failing. No, so the control does not enter into inside the if case, right? And outside if we have a statement end, that end statement you can see this output. Let's run and you can check it. Let's check it. Suppose if this case, if you write this print statement inside the if now guys, what will be the output? Now what will be the output? Yes, both. Are you sure, Yogesh? The V1 value is -10. The both lines will execute. Yes, nothing will come. Exactly. That is what I was expected from you. Let's run it, and you can see nothing on the console. Nothing on the console. So in that case, if you want to execute the statement like in below 0 value also, like you want to satisfy, then guys, you have to go with the if else. So please focus on your eyes at the right side of the flowchart. Easily you can understand. And here again, we are testing the expression. And if the condition is true, then body of the if else executes. Otherwise, the body of the else part gets executed. So we can see guys, now I'm about to write the else case. So here I am writing a statement, something, ending of the if, that indicating. Okay. Then guys, I'm opening the else block. So in else block, I'm writing a statement called like V1 is a negative. And then, one more print statement I am writing. That is what end else. And I'm moving out of the block and I'm printing a one statement, something, end. I was printing a one more statement. The statement is what? Something like end. Now you can see the output, guys. Now you can see here the condition gets false. So control comes to else. You'll get output 10 is negative. Then guys, you can see end else. Then control comes. Always the control will execute the last statement, because that is not followed by any one of the if else. Guys, you can see the output. Minus 10 is negative, and else and end. Suppose if this number is a positive, then you can see that positive case answer also. Let's run and check that output now. We can see 10 is positive, and if and end. I hope this is clear to you all how to use if and how to use if else combination, and what if only if will be used. And here itself, let me introduce one more phenomena of the else. See, if you have other programming knowledge, guys, like C or a C++ or a Java, maybe you always use the else after the if only. Correct? Is that correct? The one who have other programming knowledge, you use the else, right? Along with the if only, right? Yes. But you know, guys, in Python, that's quite different. The else is used with, okay, the else is used with not only for if. We know this case only. Like in other programming language, F, and here we have some logic, guys, and then guys here also we have to write some logic. So if the condition gets true, if the condition gets true, 1 second. Yeah, guys, if this condition gets true, then this logic A will be executed. Otherwise, the logic B will be executed. But you know, in Python, this else part will executed, guys, with what do you call it as, with while also we can execute it. With while execute we can execute. With for also we can execute. And guys, in exceptionally in try block also we use this one. Like while with else you can use, for with else we can use, and try with else also we can use it. Okay, and guys, definitely I'll go with this concepts also. While with else, okay, and for with else, for with else, and you know, try with else. These concepts will be there. These are the, I think the first time I think you are hearing this concept will be there. Okay, don't get confused. The else means the rest of the code. The meaning of else means the rest of the code will execute always. This is what actually the basic example I have given. Now, guys, let me go with the requirement now. Now I'm changing the requirement now. I want to check whether the number is 0 or positive or negative. See, now we have to go with 3 condition checking. Now we have to go with 3 condition checking. The first one is we have to check whether it is 0 or not, then positive or not, then negative or not. Let's see, guys, how I'm satisfying this one. So as per the problem statement, first we have to check if the V1 is double is equal to 0 or not. So if V1 is double is equal to 0, then you can, guys, print V1 is a 0. Direct can print V1 is a 0. Like this we can print it. What if it is not 0? Yeah, if it is not 0, then definitely, guys, we have to check the second condition, and that has to be executed dependency only. Observe, guys, now how the code gets executed. Just wait a moment. This is the end of this is elif, and guys, this is the end of if. This is the end of if. This is end elif, and this is actually I was trying to concluding you when to use elif. If you have other programming knowledge, right, that is a concept called nested if else. That is actually the situation we have to use elif, guys. Maybe you can see the slide. I have a flow chart. Maybe you can understand this is in a much better. See what the else if will do is, see, first we are testing the condition. If the condition gets true, then body of the if will gets executed. That's we know fundamental if behavior. But if the condition fails for first time, then control goes to another condition to verify. It means this condition 1, condition 2 both are dependent. Condition 1, condition 2 are both are dependent. If the condition 1 is false only, the second condition is going to be verified. Generally, a scenario you can observe in your home, if you want to go to a movie. And definitely this pandemic, I don't know how many people are watching the movies in the theater, but take a scenario, you want to go to the movie. Then definitely first what you will do, you will ask some money to your father. Yes, you will ask to your father. If your father will give, directly you will go to the movie. Suppose observe, if your father he was not giving the money to you, then definitely guys what you will do, you have to test to your mother. You will have to ask to your mother only. It means there is a dependency is there. Directly you won't ask to your mother first. First you will go and ask to your father only. And even observe your mother also will not giving you. Then definitely what you will do, you will ask to your elder brother or elder sister. Like that, you're gonna be have a hierarchy to check the money possibility. And the same thing, this is also guys. So first, this condition gets checked. If it is true, then this block code's executed. Okay, and suppose if this condition gets failing, then control comes to elif. Elif is nothing but else if. Else if second condition we are checking. Now, if this condition true, then this statement gets executed. Control will not go to the down. Now observe, if this condition also gets failing, then control comes to the down, and the last else. Else means I told you the rest of the code will execute it like this. Now guys, if you check it, the v1 is equal to 10, then the first condition failing. Then control comes to second condition. Now the condition is satisfying here, then we'll get the output as what? End positive and end, you can see guys. That is output. 10 is positive, end of else if and end. Now let me let me use this number is 0 now. The v1 is equal to 0. See, the first time condition only getting true. So then you will get the output v1 is 0. Then the rest of the code guys won't be executed. So let's run, you'll get the output that is 0 now. Yeah, this is what 0 is 0. I mean, your number is 0 and if and end. I hope guys this is clear to you all how to use if and then if else, then elif. Can you confirm guys in the chat? Guys, please confirm in the chat. Are you clear how to use them? Yeah, thanks for your acknowledgement. Yeah. Guys, this is just basic examples I have given, but we are like giving you a workbook also. In the workbook, guys, there are a lot of bulk of problem statements will be there. So if you solve them based on this basic syntaxes, then definitely you will come to know the real-time event. So I hope guys clear to you all. Then
Chanti, we have
yeah,
we have a question
Yeah,
here in the chat box. Why we are seeing exit code 0?
can you repeat?
Why we are seeing exit code 0? In
I
a
didn't get you.
in the output we can see that with exit code 0, right?
Okay, you're asking this one, right?
Yeah.
0 is 0, right?
Process finished with exit code 0. Why that is?
Okay, you're asking this one, right?
Yes.
See, Python interpreter will execute statement one after another. Actually, when Python interpreter will execute the whole the code, the Python interpreter will give an acknowledgement to you. You means developer, that the code completely executed by sending the status code as 0. Maybe you can see kind of status codes also in further programming. You'll get better idea, but the 0 indicating that the code gets Is that clear? I hope you reach it, I think. Otherwise, you can ask me again, no issues. Fine. So then, guys, like without wasting the time, then let's go to what you call it as the loop statement. As I in the introduction part, I
Chanti,
already given. Yeah.
they are
Hello?
asking to repeat again.
Okay. Fine. See, can we put 1 by 0 in the condition? Will it lead to exit code 1? Ranjit. See, we are not putting this 0. I don't know, guys, you are asking this 0 or like the programming I have written like v1 is equal to 0. See this exit code 0, if you are asking this exit code 0, means the Python interpreter will give a acknowledgement that the whole code executed without any errors, right? If you are asking a variable value equal to 0 to perform a basic conditions like a 0 or not, positive or not, negative or not. Can you
Yeah.
just elaborate your question brief?
Hi, sir. Yeah, I was
Yeah,
asking.
please.
Okay. I was asking that we haven't defined this exit code 0 anywhere, right? Is it by default in Python or?
Exactly. That's what I told you. No, the interpreter will give this as an acknowledgement to the developer.
Okay. And let's say if anything went wrong in the code, so what
Okay.
error message will get? Will we still get an exit code?
Okay. So you're asking that like, is there any other possibility to get this exit code other than the 0, right?
Yes, sir.
Is that your question?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Fine, fine, fine. You know, see, I'll try to plan a 5 minutes of session. No, not 5 minutes. We can't complete with the 5 minutes. 5 to 10 minutes of session I'll try to take for only the debugging. Okay, there you can see practically like when you will get 0 other than the 0. Okay. Got it, Ranjit?
Yeah. Okay, Chanti, you can proceed.
Fine. Guys, there is a process debugging. There, I'll tell you the behavior of interpreter, like how the debugging process will happening, and when you will get 0 other than execute 0. And see, I'm not doing any intentionally like doing mistakes, but let me do this colon I was removed. Let me remove the colon. And guys, see, you can see, I think you are asking this perspection or not, Ranjit, but this is very fundamental. Are you asking this status code now if it is exit 1, or you are asking the debugging process? I was a little bit confused with your question. Is it that you are asking or the debugging the process in Python?
Ranjit, can you raise your hand?
Okay, this was the question. Okay, got it. If this is the question, then maybe now you got the answer. If you do any syntactical mistakes, not only the syntax mistakes, maybe guys, if you do any logical mistakes, that kind of like any exceptions, then definitely the interpreter will raise this kind of things to you. So this is just acknowledgement of the interpreter, guys. 0 means success execution, and 1 means like failing the code like due to any syntactical errors or a logical mistakes. In the upcoming session, you will come to know what we call it as the logical mistakes also. This is a syntactical mistake because I haven't put the colon at the end of the line. I hope this is clear to you all. And if you're not clear, no issue, guys. You can ask me again at the end. Okay. And yeah, guys, let me go with the next content now, the loop statement. Before going to the loop statement, something, you know, yeah, we have 2 loops here. One is a while and the second is what, a for loop. But see, guys, even though we have 2 for loops, even the fundamental works we can complete by both. But the question is comes to, you know, when to use while and when to use a for loop. And generally when to use this loop statement. One example I'll give you. One example I'll give you. So observe, there is a case. If you are working with a website called Amazon. So, you know, in Amazon, you can see like lakhs of products. There's a big billion days also going on. Yeah, there's a lakhs of products will be there. But you know, in the DB, how the data will be stored. So guys, the first, everything will be stored, guys, like a product ID, and coming to what, product name, and a product, guys, some description like that. There can be lot of columns will be there. There can be something, you know, lot of columns will be there. And coming to what, the data will be persist like this. This is the row 1. This is the row 1 to display the product 1 info to have a product 1 information, and this is a row 2. Like guys, thus we have around 1 lakh of like records will be there. But the question is, sir, how this same record will be displayed in the front end? So what the server-side technology they will use to read the records from first to last. Last nothing but the 1 lakh the record. How do you read it? That is what the loops came into the picture. So what the loops will do is they will start fetching the rows from the first row to the last row. This is actually the scenario, guys, where we use the loops in real time. And don't think that the loops were used for factorial of a number program. In real time, we never do anywhere factorial, right? And guys, we never do anywhere something, Fibonacci series. That are just to get the clarity of the loop, like how the loop is performing and all. But real use case, this is a use case, guys, where you can go with this one. I hope this is the use case will help you guys when to use this loops. Now let me use guys how to use a while loop now. First let me show you guys how to use a while loop now. While little bit, let me increase the size something to like this. So while have a very basic syntax. So every loop has an initialization point. Every loop has some initialization point. So first you have to give the initialization, then while space you have to give the condition. You have to give the condition and colon indicating that the block. And guys, here you have to write body of the while. What you want to do with the while, that you can write it. Body of the while. And this is the condition. And if this condition gets true only, if the condition gets true only, then this body of the while continuously executed. If the condition is true only, if the condition is false, then none of the statements gets executed. None of the statement get executed. So guys, this is very basic syntax of while. Very basic syntax of while. Directly you can write initialize, nothing but where you want to begin the loop. Then while space you have to give the condition, and if the condition true only, then body of the while gets executed. So let me show you a piece of code now how to execute that. So I'm creating one more Python file with the name something test2.py. Now let me take one basic requirement. The requirement is I want to print 9, 7, okay, 5, and then 3, and then 1. This is my requirement. Maybe you got it, guys. The difference between each number is 2. The difference between each number is what? 2, right? And the first beginning of the number is 9. The beginning of the number is 9. While I'm explaining, please observe the explanation, guys. In my explanation itself, the 80% of code is there. 80% of code is. So your loop has to be starts at 9. Okay. Then take a variable and assign the beginning point like this. So you start your loops at 9. Then guys, you have to write the while. And while, and definitely here people get confused. Or what the condition how to write. This is beginning point. I think no doubt at all for the beginning point. And the only confusion is how to write the ending loop. And that is what the condition. So guys, to write the condition, what you need to think here is see this series and just check the last number. The last number is 1. So you can write v1 is equal to 1. Just you can write v equal to 1. So is it the condition? No, it is not condition. It is assignment. It is just assignment. It is not will become a condition. Now tell me, guys, the last number 1 is there, no? The one left side numbers are below the 1 or above the 1. One left side numbers are below the 1 or above the 1. We give this answer, then I'll tell you how to write the condition. One left side numbers are below the 1 or above the 1. Let's ping me in the chart. Below the 1 or above the 1? Yes, above the 1. Above means less than or greater than? Above means yes, less than or greater than. I know few people get confused with less than, greater than also. yeah, good guys. It's a greater than. Then definitely you have to write something, guys, the condition like this, v greater than equal to 1. So guys, this is how to form the conditions. Very simple. Guys, this is beginning, like where you want to start your loop. And this is ending. Yeah, ending means I told you the logic, how to write it. First, you can write v is equal to that end number. and go to the end number and check its left side numbers are below that number or above the number. Below means you can write less than, and above means you can write greater than. That's it. Now guys, inside the loop, first you can print that I value. First you can print that I value. I mean, that is a V value. The variable you can print the V value. Now V means, first you can see here V equal to 9. Now condition we are checking, 9 greater than or equal to n. Yes, the condition is true. Condition gets true. Then guys, here V means the 9 will be printed. After printing the 9, you can check guys, 9 will become 7. So how 9 will become 7? Definitely the V has to be decremented by 2. So for that purpose, we can write V equal to V minus 2. We can write V equal to V minus 2. Or guys, we can write V minus equal to also 2. That is also, both will be the same. V minus equal to 2 is nothing but V equal to V minus 2 only. Now guys, let's run the code and see this output now. Yeah guys, you can see as expected, you can see output 97531. Now what I'll do is I'll show you the same code execution flow in the Paint also, the flow of execution, how it will execute. Just give me a moment. Yeah, so as I given you guys, please highlight, this is your condition. This is your condition. And this is your while block. This is your while block. See, V equal to 9 and while, here we are checking the condition. 9 is greater than or equal to 1. Yes, true. Then 9 will be printed. Now guys, after just decrementing this V equal to V minus 2, what will happen? From this one, again guys, the code will go to this condition area. Again, condition goes to this condition area. Now here guys, the V will become what? 7. 7 are equal to 1. Yes, true. Now 7 will be printed. Now 7 will become 5 here. Again, control goes to condition area. 5 greater than or equal to 1. Yes, the 5 will be printed. Now 5 will become 3. Now 3 greater than or equal to 1. 3 will be printed. Yes, 3 will become 1 here now. Now 1 greater than or equal to 1. Yes, the condition true. 1 will be printed. Now guys, 1 minus equal to 2 is nothing but that is what minus 1, right? And now if the control comes to condition area and the condition failing, and if the condition failing, control will not enter into the loop. So guys, this is what, how to understand basic how the while loop gets executed. Is that clear? Is that clear? Yeah, someone is asking that, sir, V equal to, how you written that V minus 2. Yeah, that is actually the basic, the Python, the shorthand operation. V is equal to, V plus 100. This is, I think you got the clarity. See, V initially, let's take a value 5, and V equal to V plus 100 is nothing but if you print that V value, if you print the V value, then it will become 105. That's, I think, clear to you. Now this statement, this statement can also be written like this, guys, like a V plus is equal to 100. This is also equivalent to V equal to V plus 100. Like that, you can imagine for the remaining operators also, like subtraction, multiplication, division, and all. Is that clear? Okay, then cool. So guys, this is how to use the while loop. I hope you got the clarity what is while loop. Maybe you can see I have prepared a basic a flowchart how the loop will execute. See guys here, first in a while we are testing one expression, that is what we are checking the condition, and if the condition gets true, then body of the while executed. Again after executing the body of the while, guys, control goes to again the condition checking area. I told you, right? Again here the condition will be checked. If the true, then again the body of the while gets executed, and this code will continuously executed in this process. Suppose if the condition gets fails at any place, then control comes out of the while block. Now guys, I told you, there's a else part that you can use along with the if also, along with the while also. Now guys, in else part, I'm writing something like end. I told you, you can use this else. With while, with for, with the trial also you can use it. In exception handling also you can use it. Let's run the code, guys. It always executed. Else is nothing but the rest of the code. Else is nothing but rest of the code. Observe, guys, if you are doing V is equal to -9. Here we are checking the condition now. And we know if the condition true only, then this block gets executed. And here the condition is failing, then control comes to the else, and the else part will be executed, guys. You can check it. And you know, guys, even you won't write the else part also, the same behavior is there, like this. Same behavior is there. You can see it, same behavior is there. So don't get confused while with else part also. I hope this is also clear to you all, right? Yeah, yeah, someone is asking that, so do we have the increment decrement operators like other programming languages? Yes, we don't have any increment decrement. Yeah, we don't have any like increment decrement. Then instead directly we can use a +1 or a -1 to do the operations. Okay, and yeah, see what happened, if you use plus and minus in other programming languages, there are some ready-made registers are there, like INC, like DEC, they are inbuilt registers. So if you use that operator directly, the value will be keep it into the register, and the register will modify the value, and the return value will be there. But in Python we don't have it. That register we don't have it. Okay, manually we have to perform it. Now, guys, let me move to the other, the looping statement. That is what for loop. Maybe people have a good hands on the for loop in other programming languages. Let me show you guys in other programming how to write the for loop. Suppose if your requirement is you want to print 1 to 10. If your requirement is guys, if you want to print 1 to 10, then maybe you can write like int I. You can int I. Then you can write for. And guys, in for, we have to put 2 semicolons. We have to put 2 semicolons, right, like this. And here, guys, before the first semicolon, you have to give the beginning point, like this, beginning point of the loop. And in after completion of your first, like your semicolon, then you have to, guys, where you want to close your loop, where you want to close your loop. I told you guys how to write the like loop ending points. First you can write I is equal to 10, but this is not will become the condition. This is just an assignment statement. Okay, and now, guys, the same funda, move to the 10 and see the left side values, they are below the 10. They are below the 10, so you have to write I less than 10. Now every time the I value is incremented, so guys, you have to write like something, I plus plus, I plus plus. So inside the statement, guys, you can use something, the printf, and guys, you can print that I value. And this is a fundamental for loop, guys, to use in like C, CPP, Java, .NET. But in Python, we don't have this kind of syntax. A little bit syntax is different, but definitely you loved it, guys. That syntax easily compared to this other programming languages. The for loop syntax is very simple compared to other languages. So before you understand how for loop will work, you have to know, guys, there's a one function called the function name is range function. You have to know it. If you know the range function only, the for loop usage will become easy to you. Will become very easy to use. So now let me show you guys how the range function will work. Suppose if you pass, suppose if you pass range of 5. First, I will tell you what the range function will be here. If you pass range of 5, always, guys, a range function will what do you call it as? Yeah, it prepare a series. I'm repeating again. Range function always prepare the series. Series is nothing but sequence numbers. Remember, series is nothing but sequence numbers. So range function always prepare the series from zero. Now you are passing 5. What will the range function will do? It will prepare the series, guys, like this: 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4 only. This is, guys, range of 5 will do. Suppose, guys, if you pass range of 10, now maybe you can expect, yeah, this is 0 to 9 will be there. So, guys, this is how the range function will be used with a single argument. Guys, are you clear up to here? Confirm, please. Guys, please confirm with a single argument. Okay, fine. Now guys, by default it starts with the 0, but I want to restrict it. I want to give my beginning point here. I want to give my beginning point here, then guys, you can pass the 2 argument. Suppose if I pass guys something like 3 comma 9, if pass 3 comma 9, now you are telling that, hey, range function, please prepare the series from 3 and please ends with the 9. 9 means, it will give the series like this, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8 only. 9 is excluded. Guys, here you can see in the first of range of 5, 5 is excluded. 10 means 10 is excluded, and 3 comma 9 means 9 is excluded. 3 to 8 will be printed. Suppose guys, if you write range of something, 1 comma 11, can anyone guess what is the series now? Guys, what is the series now? 1 comma 11 means. Exactly. Perfect. That's what guys, 1 to 10 only. 1 to 10 only, right? And guys, one more hint I'll give you here. Even if you pass single argument, even we pass the 2 arguments, when we pass the 2 arguments, if you want to start a series from a particular point, and if you not pass guys, if you pass only single argument, always start from 0. Guys, just observe, if you pass range of 5, it starts with the series with 0, then 1 will be printed, then 2 will be printed, then 3 will be printed. Observe, every time 1 will be incremented. Observe one thing, 1 will be incremented. One value will be incremented. And here also guys, if you write 1 comma 11, 1 will be incremented. 3 comma 9, 1 will be incremented. But my requirement, I don't want to increment 1. I want to increment by 2 or 3 or 4. Right? Then guys, we have to go with the third argument. The third argument we call it a generalist. Now, guys, I'm by default, this is +1 guys. The third argument always it will be a plus. Just guys, wait a moment. Wait a moment, please. Yeah. Now, guys, this output also, this output also will become the same. 1 comma 11 comma +1 is nothing. This output also 1 to 10 only. But what if I pass range of 1 comma 11 comma +2? What will happening guys here? What will happening here? First 1 will be printed. Then guys, 2 will not printed because we are incrementing by 2. So what will happen? Then 3 will be printed. Then guys, 5 will be printed, then 7 will be printed, then guys, and 9 will be printed. After 9, definitely it has to print the 11. But I told you guys, the last number always will be excluded. That's what you can see, 13579. 113579. I hope guys, this is also clear to you all when to use the third argument. By default, it is always +1, and you can customize guys as per your requirement like this. Suppose, observe, sir, what if the case, if I pass something, +3, if I pass +3, what will happening? First 1 will be printed, then that for the 1, 3 will be added like 4, then 4 again 3 will be added guys, that is a 7. Now 7 again the 3 will be added, that is what, 10. For the 10 again guys, 3 will be added, that 13. 13 is just excluded, no, up to 11 only. Like that's what the reason guys, you will get 1, 4, 7, 10. I hope guys this is also clear to you all. Can you confirm guys? Are you clear? Acha, if you are okay with this, I'll pass one more range function. You have to tell me that output now, or else, let me give a series. Now you can tell the range function now. I'll tell you my series. Then you have to tell what will be the, how to print this. I want to print 50. Then guys, I want to print 45. Then I want to print 40. Then 35. Then 30. Then 25. Then I want to print 20. 25, 20. Guys, up to here I want to print it like this. Acha, tell me guys how to prepare the range function for this series. I want to print this series. 50, 45, 40, 35, 30, 25, 20. This series I want to print it. Can anyone ping me guys what will be the range function for this one? Exactly. Somehow people are too intelligent. Really haven't expected. You already given that answer. It's good. Yes, correct.
I can also see if you answers here.
Yes. I can able to see their charts. They already given that answer. Perfect. I can see your answers. Guys, the first argument is exactly that is what 50, the range function. I can write it, guys, for double confirmation. So you can pass, guys. Range of the beginning point is 50, right? And ending point you can see 20. It means you have to take 19, right? You have to take 19, and guys, you have to decrement. That's what the -5. So this is what, guys, the range function. So if you want to work with the for loop, okay, like this, guys, this is other programming languages. In Python, if you want to use a for loop, guys, then the range function you have to have a strong knowledge first. When to use range function with single argument, 2 arguments, and 3 arguments. Now, guys, let's start now how to use a for loop now here. You can see how to use a for loop now here. So first, let me take the requirement 1 now. Acha, let me go with the programming, then easily you can understand. Let me create one more file. Yeah, so guys, let's take the requirement 1 is I want to print, guys, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Up to here, I want to print. This is my requirement 1. I want to print 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. And seriously, you don't know how to use the for loop. First, what I'll do is I'll give a syntax, guys. I'll give a syntax on the top, then we'll start writing the code. So the syntax is for any variable you have to take, and in you have to use a range function. And in the range, guys, yeah, in the range you can give, guys, starting of the point, and here you can write stopping of the point, and then, guys, you can write step of the point. Step is nothing but either you can increment or decrement. And guys, this is, here you can write body of the loop, body of the for loop. This is what actually the basic syntax. Guys, let me show you the code now. Let me show you the code now. How do we use it? So guys, you can write for this series, I'm telling you, for you can write variable name, something you can write, I'm writing I, and in is a keyword. And then, guys, you have to use a range function now. And yeah, guys, you already know 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 means directly you have to pass the argument as 5. Okay. And guys, you can print that I value. You can print that I value. And let's run it. And guys, check this output. You can see, guys, I expected 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Guys, is it clear the syntax and the first example? Fine. Now it's your turn, guys. It means you can try. You can try to solve the problem statements. Then definitely the loop will become very easy to you. The loop will become very easy to you. I'm not giving all the things. You can practice the remaining things. Just definitely you can understand them. So guys, this is about what you call it as the loop statements. Loop statements. Now inside the loop statement, yeah, inside the loop statements, let me go with one more problem statement now. Guys, I'm doing just Control-C, Control-V. Just I'm copying the code. Yeah, this is a for loop basic syntax as I have given you just now. Now, if I give, guys, 1, 11, as expected, guys, it starts with the loop with 1 and ends with, guys, 10 only. Now, if you run it, guys, the output 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 10, you can see this output. But there can be something like 2 jump statements are there. One is break and continue. I'll tell you how to use them. I mean, how the initial behavior is. So inside the for loop, I'm writing if I is equal to 5, then, guys, I'm using a statement called break. Then in else block, guys, I'm printing that I value. Yeah. Now, these 4 statements are treated as inside the for loop. Observe. This for loop, I mean, this loop will execute the 4 statement continuously, this 4 statements. But guys, first I will become 1 value, right? Now here condition we are checking, the condition gets failed, so the control come to else, then the 1 will be printed like this, guys. 2, 3, 4, Up to 4, guys, there is no problem. 1, 2, 3, 4 will be printed. But whenever I will become 5, now the condition is true. If the condition is true, the control reached into the break. Whenever a program control reach to the break, whenever program control reach to the break inside the loop, that loop terminated completely. The loop execution terminated completely and comes out of the loop. Now, guys, if you see this output now, yeah, guys, you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 will be printed. And as I told you guys, you can use the else anywhere you can use it like this, guys. So I'm writing something, end here. Again, guys, something, I have written end. Now, guys, as I told you, I equal to 5, the condition will true. Then the control reach to the break. Break means control outside comes out of the complete for loop, and the else part is executed, guys. You can see it. Just you can see, guys. I think any kind of indentation or what seems to be the else block is not executing. It has to be executed. Wait a moment. Yes. Just wait a moment. Actually, this else part always has to be executed. Just make it as I is equal to 1. So the first time only it's breaking. It seems to be the else part is not working. So I have to double check this thing. I have to double check. No issues, guys. I'll get back to you. This again. Let me double check and I'll get back to you. Why this self part is not executed? It's a kind of logic mistake or kind of like any version changes. Let me double check and I will get back to you. Okay, I'll get back to you again. So, guys, I hope you clear how break will be using. Let me use, guys, continue now. Let me use continue now. So what the difference between continue and break is, what break will do is it will terminate the complete loop execution. But whenever you use continue, the loop execution terminated only once. The loop execution terminated only once. It means at the time of I is equal to 5, I equal to 5. Okay, the loop will skip this execution. Then from next time onwards, the loop will be executed as it is. Guys, you can test it now. You can see this output now. 1, 2, 3, 5 will be skipped and 6 to 10 will be printed. I hope, guys, this is clear to you all how to use a break and then continue also. The basic usage I have given. Coming to a problem statement, we'll share you one workbook there. You can practice the program based on these things. Is that clear, guys? Let me show you the first window which I started there. Guys, these are the topics I covered so far. Is that clear? Okay then. Okay then. So let me move to the other topics now. That is what Python data types. Python data types. Guys, let me pose this question to you. Maybe few people are already working, or few people are already learn Python. Maybe from any other resources. Tell me one thing: Python is statically typed or dynamically typed programming language? Because programming languages, okay, suppose if it is a C or a CPP or Java or .NET, you can take all are statically typed programming language only. Statically typed programming language only. Now, guys, tell me, Python is statically typed or dynamically typed? Yes, correct. People already given the answer. Dynamically typed. But yeah, first before that, let me go with what is a data type. Yeah, I'm trying to give you the conclusion. So you have to be wait, guys. You have to be wait. Yes, you know, in C language, let me go with the comparison itself only. Yeah, they are all statically typed programming languages. Yeah, let's write completely. This is a yeah, they are all guys statically typed programming languages only. Statically typed means if you want to store a person age, suppose you want to store a person age, you want to store it like person age, you want to store it like 25. Then you know guys, in other program in CCPP Java.NET, definitely the person has age is first has to be declared of integer type like this. Then you have to assign the value because you are assigning a 25 value is an integer type. Suppose observe that you are assigning the person 6 months, 25 years 6 months, then you have to change this into to float. That's what guys, based on the value you have to declare its type. Suppose guys, if you want to declare your percentage to something like this, something like this, like 20 like this, you want to give it 20, then definitely guys, you have to change to something, you know, string. This is what statically typed. Statically typed means before you assign any value to a variable, that type has to be decided. The type has to be decided. Okay, now guys, there is a programming language are there, you know, Python, and there is a one more programming language. Let me consider it is something like JavaScript. You know guys, they are all not statically typed, they are all dynamically typed programming languages. They are clearly guys, you know, they are dynamically typed programming languages. Dynamically typed means, suppose if you declare a percentage is equal to 25 directly like this, you need not to declare its type. You need not to declare its type. Directly you can assign a value like this. Now, you know, if you assign this value like this, the percentage automatically will become the integer. Suppose if you assign it 25 years and 6 months, then automatically it will become the float. Now, suppose if you are assigning your age something, you know, like this, like a 20, then automatically it will become the string. This is what dynamical do. You need not to declare it type. I hope guys you got the clarity difference between statically typed and dynamically typed. Is that clear? Yeah. Yeah, Yogesh, like you know, yeah, you are telling something like in C#.NET also we have some var, you know, in not only in the C#.NET, in Java also we have some var. Anyhow, I'm not like misleading the like more content. Okay, in Java also we have something like the var. Okay, yeah, guys, but you know, this is the old story of Python. That's a dynamically typed. That's the old story. Clearly, that's guys the old story. It means let's declare a variable something as you know, person age is equal to, let's take 25, and you can also check guys by using it. There is a function is there. The function name is guys the type. There's a function is there. The function name is type. What it will do, it will tell what type of value will be there inside the person age. You can check it, guys. Yeah, guys, you can check. It's an integer type. The object type, it's an integer object. If you pass 25.6 guys, you know, just run it and guys check it, it would all be auto will become the float, right? And now if you pass guys something in single quotes or double quotes and something, if you write 20, then automatically guys it will become the string. You can check it. But guys, you know, in Python we have data type declaration also. In Python we have data type declaration also. It means, you know, guys, you can declare the data type like this. You can see person, you can write int and is equal to, guys, you can give the value like this. Yeah, in Python guys we have data types also. So never ever say that in interview we don't have the data types in Python. We have data types in Python. right? This is the statement you have to remember, guys. Both will be the valid statements only. Both will be the valid. Now Python, we can say it's a statically typed and as well as dynamically typed. Don't say it is only dynamically. You have to tell that for interview it is statically typed and as well as dynamically. It means you can declare percentage colon int is equal to 25. This is a valid. And person age, guys, is equal to 25. It is also valid. Both will become the integer type only. I hope, guys, this is clear to you all. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So now let me introduce you guys how many types of what you call it as data types are there. How many types of data types are there? So generally we have two types of data type. It means if you take this variable, the percentage variable, which is storing one value or multi-value. Now, based on this code, guys, tell me this variable holding single value or multi-value. Yeah, I need some response from you guys. Hey, Lakshmi, so please can you just verify I'm storing single value? Okay, 25 is a single value. The single value I'm storing into, guys, the percentage. Got it? Now, if you want to store one more percentage, then definitely, what you need to take, you have to take one more variable. The first variable name I have changed it to percentage 1, and you have to take one more variable, and then, guys, you can give the one more percentage like this. Suppose if you want to store a third person age, then definitely, guys, you have to take third variable, and you can store the value like this. Now, if you observe carefully, to store 3 percentages, you have taken 3 variables that I have given you, guys. Each variable storing the single value. But is there any case in other programming languages, guys? I'm telling you, in other programming languages like C, C++, Java, .NET, in a single variable, if you want to store multi-values, then, guys, we can go with arrays. That is the other programming language concern. Sir, what about a Python? Do we have arrays the same concept? Yes, guys, we have a same topic, but other than this arrays, we have a topic something, list. Okay, triple set, and guys, one more thing, we have it something, dictionary. We have array. Along with the array, we have 4 data types also, guys. List, triple set, dictionary also. So that's what the conclusion. The conclusion is, guys, we have 2 types of data types in Python. That is what some data types can store single value and some data types can store multi-value. These are all, guys, stores multi-values like arrays. Now you will come to know the difference between this one after another each, but this is the basic categorization. I'll show you one slide. That slide will give you the more clarity on the data types, guys. You can see this slide. Yeah, please, you can see this slide clearly. Yeah. So every value in Python has a data type. Every value. That you can take 25 or 23, 23.6. Take anything that will have a subset type. Since everything in object in Python, guys, it's somewhat difficult to you the first time when you're seeing what is object. So don't get confused. What is object here? You'll come to know in the OOPS. I'll elaborate it. Okay, so you need not to confuse for that one. What is object and all. But you can see this second point, guys. We can use type function to know which class or variable or a value belongs to. And there's one more function is there, isInstance, that you will come to know in the OOPS, guys. So don't worry here how to use it. But guys, you can see these 2 categorization. That there can be 2 types of data types are available in Python. One is basic data types, and maybe you can consider these basic data types are nothing but primitive data types. Basic data types are nothing but primitive data types. So primitive data types means they can store single value, guys. You can see A equal to 5, single value. B equal to 2.5, that's a float value. You can see this is integer, float, and guys, the Boolean values are like true or false, and T should be capital, F should be capital. And guys, some complex number, you can see 1 plus 2j. We already know what is complex number. If you are a mathematical background, definitely. And guys, this is what about the string. Or you can write in 3 single quotes or 3 double quotes, that are considered as a string only. This is about basic data types. Total 5 basic data types: int, float, bool, complex, and string. Now, right side screen, guys, right side of the screen, you can see collection data types, or also we can call it as something, non-primitive data types, or we can call it as derived data types also. Derived data types also. Among them, you can see, guys, as I told you, there can be 5 categorization: list, tuple, set, and a dictionary. Guys, one more thing, we have an array. That is also I'll show you. And what is our difference between array and all. Guys, is the slide is clear to you all? Is that clear? The basic categorization. Can you confirm, guys, please? Is that clear? The data types categorization. Fine. Guys, I'll go with one real-time use case, because other data types maybe you work with somewhere else. Like I told you, some storing percentage will go with int, and to store something person heights, we can go with float, and to check whether the person is gender, maybe you can go with like a true or false, or a person marital status, marital status. Again, you can go with Boolean. And let's go with a person like physically handicapped or not. There also you can go with the Boolean. And if you want to store the person name, we can go with the string, person, city. But the question is, sir, when we go with the complex, when we go with the complex, definitely that is you have to know it. Hey, Yogesh, so nothing will be the tricky, but I'll make everything is simple to you. But be a patient because I haven't started the collection data types. Okay, I haven't started, so give me some time. I'll give more clarity. Nothing is difficult. Okay. Yep, fine. Now, guys, get into what the when to go with the complex numbers, because one real-time use case I'll tell you that I'm using in my current project. I'm using in my current project. Guys, I'm working on a project, something like application. I'm not revealing that application. That application, it will take, guys, both what you call the restaurant orders, particular restaurant order only it will take. That is I'm working on that application. Maybe you can see Zomato, Swiggy, that will take the order from like any one of the hotel, but my application will take the order from, guys, a particular hotel places only, nearby hotel places only. Okay. In that case, how do we check? I mean, once the person has signed up into my application, and how do we expose the particular hotels to that guy based on his location only, right? Based on his location only. Location means what? Guys, tell me what in by location in your point of view. Can anyone? Guys, tell me what in by location in your point of view. Maybe you searched in Zomato, or maybe you can go through Quicker. The same behavior will be there. Nearby places, hotels, nearby, how will you get it? Memory address, coordinates, exact place. Yeah, I think Nilesh, you are near to the answer. Okay, coordinates like latitude and longitude. That, guys, to store we use complex numbers. I hope you got it, guys. When to use the complex numbers to store this kind of location like XY directions data, then you have to go with, guys, the complex numbers. And there, guys, we're going to be verify this complex number values like IJ values, right? The real parts and imaginary parts. Based on the real part and imaginary part, by comparing, guys, we'll come to know like how to give an order to a particular place and how to display particular hotels name to a particular people. Is that clear, guys, when to use complex numbers? Clear? Yes, because in my current project we are dealing with these things. Right, guys, let me go with overview. First, let me go with overview. First, let me go with the overview. Wait a moment. Guys, one point I can tell you here. Array is nothing but, maybe guys, you already know the definition apart from other programming languages. Array store similar data elements. Guys, this is a fundamental definition. I think everyone knows. Array store similar data elements. Nothing but plural, guys. You can say similar. Similar data elements are nothing but, we can say, guys, homogeneous data elements. Another word we can say, guys, homogeneous data elements. Array stores homogeneous data elements. Homogeneous means similar data elements. Sir, do we have the same definition in Python for arrays? Yes, guys, almost, not almost, we have the same definition in array also. So in Python, array also we use for the same behavior, store homogeneous data elements. Sir, what about all, guys? There is an answer. Is there? The answer is store homogeneous and, guys, heterogeneous data elements. All, even list, tuple, set, dictionary are there, no? All will be the same definition. It means all can store homo and as well as heterogeneous. Suppose if there is a serious case that you have to store only homogeneous element, then only you will go to the arrays. In other all cases, guys, you have to go with list, tuple, set, dictionary only. This is the first and foremost difference between arrays and other data types. Is that clear? Is that clear? There are other factors are there, but this is the main difference between arrays and the remaining all. First, what I'll do is, guys, I'll go with 4 differences first. Then we'll talk about, guys, something, the arrays. We'll talk about something, guys, arrays. Okay. First, what I'll do is, this is list. Then, guys, let me take it as a tuple, list, tuple. Then let me take it as this is a set. And, guys, let me complete this chart completely. Let me complete this chart first. I'll give a chart to you now. And this chart, guys, will help you for interviews and as well as real-time coding also. This chart, let me complete this chart. And this chart, guys, will give you the clarity of complete of 4 data types. Later, guys, I'll go with the difference between the arrays and the rest of this 4, rest of the 4. The first point, let me highlight you that here, the first point, guys, type of elements, type of elements. So what type of elements they can store? Type of elements, what type of elements they can store, like list, tuple, set, dictionary, what type of elements they can store. Guys, just now I have given the clarity. Just now I have given the clarity. That is what all can store homo and heterogeneous elements. Type of elements. Guys, the first factor I am taking, the first factor I am taking, type of elements. Guys, is a common point I am giving here. Common point I am giving for all. So see carefully. This is a common point for all. Common point all. Type of elements means list, tuple, set, dictionary. All can store homo and as well as heterogeneous element. Heterogeneous means different data type elements also we can store it. We can store it. So guys, wait. Yeah, yeah. Let me go with, guys, the second factor, like notation. So how they represented. Notation is nothing but how they represented. List, set, dictionary, how they represent. Guys, list always represented within the square braces, square braces. And there, guys, you can give value 1, value 2, and value 3, so on. Like that, guys, you can give it. This is a representation of notation of what you call it as list. Guys, if you take, guys, tuple, in tuple, we have to use parenthesis. Inside the parenthesis, guys, you can give the values. Now coming to what set, we have to use a curly braces. Inside the curly braces, you have to give the values. This is what, guys, the set representation. Now coming to what dictionary. I think it's wrongly spelled. CT. Yeah, dictionary. So guys, if you go to the dictionary, again here the data will be represented in guys in curly brace, but here in dictionary, yeah, there's a one difference is there, guys. Dictionary and all, one different main difference is there. In list tuple set, we can store only values, common point. Guys, observe common point values. But in dictionary, guys, you can store a data in guys key colon value pairs. Key colon value pairs. Like this, guys, we can store the data. We can store the data. Now, guys, here itself, I'll give an example. Otherwise, later you will get confused. Okay, here itself, I'll give a basic example. Now, let me go with the basic example, guys. Here, just 1 second, guys. Let me increase this size, so then easily I can conclude you this topic in a simple way. Wait a moment. Yeah. Now, guys, you can see the example for the list. Yeah, you can use square braces. Suppose if you want to store a person details, you want to store a person. Let me take this is a person age. Let's take the person name something, you know, Ajay. You may use single quotes or double quotes. And guys, let me give the height like 5.6. Guys, I told you this all can store homo and heterogeneous element. I am storing the heterogeneous elements. You can see a person age, person name, and person height. Now, guys, if you take the tuple, the symbols that you have to change, instead of square braces, you have to use a parenthesis. Here also, guys, you have to use just curly braces. But you know, this time in dictionary, you have to use a curly brace. In curly brace, you can give guys first key is age, like 21, comma. Second key is guys the name. You can give now the value is guys something, you know, Ajay. And the third key, guys, you can give its height. Now I'm giving his height is guys something, you know, 5.6. So guys, this is an example. The third factor I have taken example. I hope this is also clear to you all. Yes, guys, confirm please. Is that clear? Yes, fine. Now, you know, let me go with guys now. Let me go with guys. The other factors, other factor. Let me take the other factor something, you know, duplication of elements. Duplication of elements. It means duplicates are allowed or not. Yes, in list, guys, duplicates are allowed. You can store duplicate values. You can store duplicate values, guys. In a tuple also you can store a duplicate, but set is specially for guys unique elements. We can store only unique. It means set we can say guys it cannot allow. So set cannot allow the duplicate values. Coming to a dictionary, you know, again in dictionary where are key and values will be there, no? So guys, here key should be unique. Key should be guys unique. Key should be unique, and guys, whereas value can be duplicate. Value can be duplicate. So this is the one more factor that you have to remember, because dictionary is quite different, no? Because they can store key comma values, and list values can all duplicate. Tuple values also can be duplicate, but set values cannot allow. Duplicate cannot allow. Only unique elements will be allowed. I hope guys this is also clear to you all. The fourth factor, that is what duplication of elements. Now, guys, let me go with one more factor now. That is what object type. Nothing but are they mutable or immutable? Are they mutability? Let me take this is a factor as something, you know, mutability. Mutability means, guys, I'll take you what is the example for mutability. Observe, I'm taking one list here. I'm taking one list element something, you know, 10, 20, 30. Guys, observe this is. I have taken a list variable. The variable name is my list one. I have a 3 elements. It means mutability means if you change the element, 0th element something to 100, 0th element is guys 10. A list elements will be indexed as starts with 0. Now guys, already in 0 I have a 10, but I was trying to replace into guys 100. It means you can change the list. Now guys, if you printed that list, if you printed that my list, the output will be guys, the output will be 100, 20 and 30. This is what mutability nature. Mutability means content can be modified. Content can be modified. See, I think someone is asking like they just draw how to convert list to set. Yeah. See, just I'm giving the overview of the all. Please wait. I'm just giving the overview of all. Let me complete this overview of the all. Then we'll get one exposure definitely. Then after that, guys, I'll go with this some tricky things in interview. Definitely, as you're asking, this is a valid question, Tejas. It's a really valid question. Like that, I'll try to cover a couple of things also. But let me complete this one. Okay. Tejas, are you clear? Okay. Yeah, guys. This is what a mutability, and mutability is nothing but not only content replacement, not only the content replacement, okay, content deletion, and adding new elements also. Adding new elements, all under the concept called guys mutability. Mutability means guys, we can replace the existing value, okay, and we can add the new value, and we can delete the existing value. These three things under guys the mutability only. It means they can modifiable or not. Guys, if you see the list is guys clearly mutable. It means content can be modified. But guys, tuple is strictly immutable. Content cannot be modified. Once a tuple is declared, then no one can modify the content. Modify means just now told you, you can't delete, you can't replace, and you can't add the new elements. That's what immutability. That's what guys immutability. Now guys, coming to what set is also guys immutable. Set is also immutable. And coming to what guys dictionary, it's clearly immutable. You can change. You can change. Even a key value, if you want to change, you can change. Suppose observe that the name is Ajay, no? Suppose you want to change this name to not Ajay to Ajay Kumar, you can change it. That's what it will provide the mutability nature in dictionary. Guys, this is the fifth factor. This is the fifth factor. I hope guys this is also clear to you all. Guys, so far I discussed you type of elements and how they notated, and the very basic examples I have shown you, and duplication of elements, then object type, and then guys let me go with the factor that is what accessing the elements. How do we access the elements? List, tuple, set, dictionary. How do we access the elements? Guys, in list, elements are accessed by index. By index, and the index clearly guys starts with 0. Index says clearly guys beginning with 0. Begin with 0. Begin with 0. By indexes only we can access it. By index only we can access it. Right? Index starts with 0. Coming to what? Tuple. Guys, here also the same answer, by indexes only. Again, guys, the same answer I can give you here. This is begin with 0 only. Begin with 0 only. Now coming to what? The set. Yeah, guys, actually in set you can't access it by the index. Okay, cannot access by the index. Cannot by index. So then how do we access the element? I'll tell you guys once we go to the set topic, because guys just I'm giving the overview now. I'm giving the overview now. Once give you the overview is completion, maybe in the next session I will go with the programming on each data type. Just I'm giving the overview only today. Okay. Now coming to what guys, the right side, the last one, that is what dictionary. You can see dictionary elements are accessed by keys, guys. By key. So if you want to access 21, you have to access the 21 based on the key age. If you want to access the value Ajay, based on the name key only you can access. That's what by key only you can access. Based on the key only you can access. I hope guys this is also clear to you all. Yes. The sixth factor. Confirm all, please. Now, guys, let me go with the one more factor, order, order of elements, order of elements. So what kind of like order they follow? Guys, order is nothing but I can give you the one scenario in your schooling, guys, in classroom. Suppose if the Ajay is a person, like he was entered into the classroom first, definitely we can't give the guarantee that that guy is going to be leave the classroom as a first. Maybe the random order, right? That is the same situation, guys, that I'm going to. And let's take one more scenario, like ticket counter. And few people definitely like can't see the ticket counter also nowadays because everything is online, right? So, guys, if you take the ticket counter, what will happening? If you take if anyone like suppose if Ajay is going to the first in the person to take the ticket, and definitely he is going to leave the first only from that cabin, right? That is what actually I'm going to give you the order of the list triple set dictionary. Guys, if you go to the list elements are definitely, guys, the insertion order is preserved. Insertion order is preserved. Nothing but first in, first out. First in, first out. Nothing but in the previous example, if you observe, guys, in the previous example, if you observe, okay, previous example, see if this is your list. If you suppose if your list, first which element you are storing 10, that will be out first. Guys, first which element we store in 10 now, that will be the out first. And what is the second element? 20, that will be the second out. And what is the third element? 30, that will be the third out. Like that, in which order that you are inserting, same order, guys, you can see it in the output. That's the reason, guys, we have to call guys the insertion order is preserved. That is what first in, first out. First in, first out. First in, first out. That is what the list will follow. Even tuple also, guys, yeah, it will follow the same order, FIFO. Or we can say, guys, something, insertion order is preserved, or you can call it as FIFO also, no issue. But coming to what, guys, said, coming to what, guys, said, definitely it is clearly, guys, unordered. It means we can't trace it order. Set is unordered. Set is unordered, guys, clearly. Okay. Now coming to what, guys, dictionary. Sir, what about the dictionary? Is it order or it is unordered? Guys, it is unordered again. We can't give the particular order for dictionary elements. It is also, guys, a unordered type collection only. Unordered collection elements only. So, guys, based on this order of elements, see the two of them ordered and the last two of them, guys, unordered. First two are unordered and the last two are, guys, unordered. Sir, then what is the mechanism I supposed to use it? What is the mechanism I supposed to use to fetch the elements from list, triple set, and dictionary? Yeah, guys, that will become the last factor. That will become the last factor. The eighth one is, guys, iterator mechanism. Iterator mechanism. Guys, iterator is nothing but, don't get confused. Iterator is nothing but fetching item by item from the collection. Repeating you, iterator is nothing but fetching the elements element by element, fetching the item element by element, fetching the item element by element. We call it iterator. So, guys, if it is a list, yeah, happily we can use a for loop. We can use a happily for loop. Even tuple also, guys, we can use a for loop because both are index based. You can see both are index based. You can see, but coming to what, and both are ordered. But the last two are, see, guys, they are not accessed by the for loop. With the for loop, we can't access them. But for this reason, guys, we have some function. The function name something, iterand next function, we can use it. Here also, guys, we have to use iterand next function to access this element. And iterand next function is not for only, guys, the set and dictionary. It is not for only the set and dictionary. The iterand next function we can apply for list and tuple also. It means you have to come to the conclusion that instead of the for loop, always it's highly recommended in real time, guys, you can use iterand next function, because if you use iterand next, okay, they use it for ordered type collection as well as unordered collection type elements. If you use for loop, the for loop is specially designed for ordered type like list and tuple, but iterand next for all, guys, for ordered and as well as unordered collections itself. Guys, these 8 are the bullet points to you to understand the when to use list, tuple, and set and dictionary. Anyhow, tomorrow, beginning of the session, guys, I'll go with the coding part of each collection. So do you have any queries, guys? You can ask me now. Guys, any queries? Feel free to ask now. Yeah, Ranjit, iterator are some mechanisms like for loop and iterate next. What they do is just they will pick each element from the collection and return them. Suppose if the collection have 1,000 elements, okay, from 1,000 definitely we have to get one after another, right? That's the reason we go with iterating mechanisms. And Tejas asking something, how to access set values. Tejas, I don't know whether you hear it or not. The statement I have given you, if you want to set any, if you want to access elements, I'll show in the programming part how to access it. Got it, Tejas? I given that comment. In the program itself, I'll explain you, okay? Okay. Okay, guys, then I can't see what about string, sir? It is mutable or immutable. Okay, Vinay, see, I haven't started the string also. For string also, there's I think 10 minutes of 10 to 15 minutes of session is required, but string is immutable. String is immutable. The nature is we can't change its value. If you are saying it's immutable nature only. And I'll tell you the strong reason that why only the string they make it as immutable. There's a strong reason is there. Maybe you can see a cross question interview question. Okay, a cross question interview question like why only strings are immutable? Why not like a int, float, bool, complex are only immutable? For this one also there's a reason. I'll discuss in upcoming sessions. Yeah, Sagar asking something. Your answer how to access the user choice. Yeah, you can use a function called input. In Python, there's a function input like you can know in other programming language we use scanf in C language. Maybe I can compare you like in Python we have a input function. Okay, Sagar. Yeah. Okay, guys. Anything else? Anything you want to ask? Yeah, I'm not sure, Sagar, regarding PPT, but they'll share you the video session to you. Nakul, actually, maybe you can wait the iterator mechanism. Maybe you twice I explained. Maybe if you won't reach it, no problem. In the program itself, I'll explain you much better. Okay, Nakul. Okay then. Yeah, Bindu, are you there?
Yeah.
Hello.
Guys, I have shared the Google form with you in the chat box. Please fill up the form if you want. If you really want workbooks, recordings, everything, I'll share with your email ID. So provide me the details in the Google form. I have shared already.
Okay.
Okay, Chanti.
Yeah, Bindu, like I'm about to close.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye, all of you. Tomorrow we'll meet to the rest of the content. Okay. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thanks, Chanti.